Trump contradicts Netanyahu. Progressives and Mahat join forces. And now we know the reason why Trump and Epstein stopped hanging out before Epstein was found hanging out. That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Worried about memory loss? Recent studies show that all you need to do to stay sharper while aging is get active, challenge your brain, and eat healthy. Maybe I should stand up from this desk from time to time. But getting old and senile is depressing. Let's lighten the mood. Gaza! Things are not looking good over there right now. Starvation and dehydration are rampant. And with no meals, fainting nurses, dwindling baby formula, and a lack of nutritional fluids needed to treat malnourished children, Gaza's hospitals are in serious trouble. So what's causing this situation? Well, it depends on who you believe. Hamas claims it's because Israel halted all aid going into Gaza back in March when the ceasefire expired, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says they only did this because Hamas was stealing the supplies and preventing them from reaching the citizens of Gaza. After that, Israel took control of aid distribution and began handing out food from limited specific sites guarded by armed troops, who, according to some reports, have opened fire on and killed dozens seeking food. You've really got to be starving to want food that badly. So is any of what Bibi is saying true? Well, a U.S. government analysis found no evidence of massive Hamas theft of Gaza aid. But Israel refutes these claims and released footage they say shows Hamas terrorists stealing aid from Gazans. Now, if you're wondering, is this proof of what's been happening all over the area, or is it an isolated incident? Is that actually Hamas, or is this some unrelated event? I can answer all those questions with a confident, reassuring, When it comes to the never-ending war in the Middle East, it can be hard to sort fact from fiction, especially since both Hamas and the Israeli government have been known to lie. And speaking of lies, or at least mistakes, the New York Times admitted that an emaciated Gazan boy on its front page had pre-existing health problems, specifically a muscle condition that contributes to him looking like this. Of course, that doesn't mean the situation in Gaza isn't bad. There are plenty of other images of malnourished Gazans. But what does Netanyahu have to say about this?
There is no starvation in Gaza, no policy of starvation in Gaza.
Well, which one is it? Those are two very different statements. Are you saying there's no starvation in Gaza, or just that there's no policy of starvation in Gaza? Because one might be true while the other is just a flat-out denial of reality. I know which one the media will go with. One thing is clear, much of the aid is not being delivered. Israel claims this is the UN's fault, while the UN claims it's Israel's. We've officially entered the era where a complex humanitarian crisis can best be explained with a meme. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has had enough of all the finger-pointing. He says there is real starvation in Gaza, that the U.S. will set up food centers, and that Netanyahu better make sure they get the food. This will be tough to coordinate, as it'll be a challenge to figure out how to airdrop McDonald's in the region. Hopefully they'll figure it out and civilians can be saved, and those truly would be the most happy of meals. Look, I'm trying to lighten the mood, all right? Starving children doesn't exactly scream hitting a vein in a comedic goldmine. Trump also said on Truth Social, the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. So Trump wants the civilians in Gaza who are facing starvation to be taken care of. He also wants the Israeli citizens who have been held as hostages to be taken care of. Do you know how terrible a situation is when the nickname-giving, meme-posting, AI slop-sharing guy that constantly makes rambling, 9-paragraph, insult-laden Truth Social posts on anyone who slightly agitates him is the most mature, reasonable man in the room? Speaking of unreasonable people, Russian president and grown-up version of those creepy babies that won't stop staring at you in the mall food court, Vladimir Putin. Trump announced he's reducing Russia's 50-day deadline to reach a peace deal with Ukraine or face secondary sanctions.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
I don't know if I've ever seen such a palpable, I'm not mad, just disappointed energy. Here's hoping Putin will roll up his sleeves, stop looking this gift horse in the mouth, and start riding it. Though I guess he wouldn't have sleeves to roll up then. And after the break, the US and EU reach a trade deal. Welcome back. Worried about memory loss? Recent studies show that all you need to do to stay sharper while aging is get active, challenge your brain, and eat healthy. Maybe I should stand up from this desk from time to time. The US and the EU have reached a trade deal. According to the White House, this deal will see the EU invest $750 billion in US energy by 2028. And while some analysts say that's unlikely to materialize for economic and political reasons, this deal also establishes a 15% tariff on EU goods instead of the proposed 30%. So, trade war averted, and everyone rejoiced. Except France. With the French Prime Minister calling this an act of submission. Some might call that sour grapes, which would ruin their champagne. But their opinion is worth listening to, because historically, if anyone is an expert on surrendering, it's the French. Speaking of uneasy alliances, progressives and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have something they actually agree on. Besides RFK Jr. looking way better shirtless than Putin, everyone agrees on that. Congressman Gerald Nadler, Maxine Dexter, and Ilhan Omar introduced a bill to ban prescription drug ads, which is something RFK Jr. has been rumored to be in support of for a while now. It's like an Avengers Assemble if RFK Jr. was a Captain America who had concerns about what was in the super soldier serum. I'm just kidding. He's a vaccine skeptic. He's down with steroids. But not everyone is on board with this, namely the media. The Washington Post put out an op-ed saying those annoying pharmaceutical ads have real value. Yeah, to the shareholders. And CNN agrees, saying cracking down on these ads could cripple some broadcasters. Considering how unpopular the media is, that isn't the best defense. People hate Big Pharma and the media, but perhaps not as much as everyone hates Jeffrey Epstein, the dead guy who just won't die. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche met with Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, and asked about 100 different people, according to her lawyer. Maxwell also offered to testify before Congress, but with major conditions, including immunity. Though at least one member of the House Oversight Committee has rejected the idea of giving her immunity. I can see why she's desperate to make a deal. Facing a decades-long prison sentence, she must feel alone on an island. And not this one. But if you've been online recently, you may have seen a lot of theories floating around that Trump is using Maxwell to implicate his enemies, say he did nothing wrong, then grant her a pardon. Thanks for boosting the helpful flow chart, Elon. So what does Trump have to say about that?
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she's cooperating?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
He hasn't thought about it. So, of course, that can only mean he won't rule out pardoning her. Media gonna media. And while the DOJ reportedly informed Trump that his name was listed in the Epstein files, there is a difference between being an associate versus a criminal co-conspirator who engaged in sex trafficking. Everyone already knew that Trump knew Epstein. The files aren't the smoking gun. That'd be the client list, which the FBI and DOJ now suddenly say doesn't exist. Anyway, according to the book The Grifters Club, Trump and Epstein had a falling out in 2007, before Epstein's first conviction, with Trump banning Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after he hit on a member's teenage daughter. And now, Trump has broken his silence on that, and apparently it was over something much, much worse.
He did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did.
He hired staff from under him. Everyone knows good help is hard to find, and he took them. Joking aside, does anyone else think this is a much more believable reason for why Trump cut ties with Epstein? You're a creep? Whatever. You stole my staff? Assemble the war council. Also, Trump says one of those underage staff members Epstein hired from under him was Virginia Giuffre, who was allegedly sex trafficked to Prince Andrew and took her own life earlier this year under suspicious circumstances. But there's another theory making the rounds concerning Epstein, that he may have been a spy for Mossad, as Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, had alleged ties to the Israeli intelligence agency. Epstein and Israel have both denied these claims, but that hasn't stopped many from speculating that Epstein filled powerful men engaging in criminal activity, shared it with Israel, and they're using it as blackmail leverage, which proves Trump is definitely on the client list because he never contradicts Netanyahu. Oh, yeah. And on top of all that, a new CBS News investigation of the Jeffrey Epstein jail video has revealed new discrepancies, on top of the ones others have already pointed out. So if you're wondering if Maxwell will get a pardon, if Epstein's client list will be exposed, and what exactly was behind all the mysteries surrounding his life and death, relax. I can answer all those questions with a confident, reassuring... And finally, worried about memory loss? Recent studies show that all you need to do to stay sharper while aging is get active, challenge your brain, and eat healthy. Maybe I should stand up from this desk from time to time. Anyway, before you go, be sure to check out this other episode of America Uncovered, recommended by the algorithm. Do it quick before the robots turn on us after discovering people made up a slur for robots. Clanker. And as always, support America Uncovered and screw YouTube by subscribing to our new website, AmericaUncovered.tv. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.